Yeah. And so here's some practical steps that I was thinking through, like some of the times I had the conversation. So, assuming you're on the same page as your pastor, like practically what you do is first off, go talk to this person, or if you can identify, sometimes it's going, we had a seniors ministry, sometimes it's going there into the belly of the beast, if you will. And I don't mean it like that, but at least there's a concentration of people who probably want to change how you're doing music if you go to the seniors ministry at your church. Then the first thing you do is you don't try to defend the set list. I have gotten myself into that far too many times where I'll come through and be like, oh no, what you don't understand is like this new United song. There's really some really great depth to the theology. And that's true. There's a lot of modern worship that has, even the ones that sound like hymns, let's set those aside. But there's a lot of really good modern worship that's very good theologically. The depth is there. A lot of times the argument about why aren't we doing more hymns was leveraged at some of the maybe 90s, early 2000s, very repetitive, hardly much to them songs, which again, they weren't necessarily bad, but they didn't have a lot to them. But there are songs that have incredible theological depth in there. So here's a phrase that I would often say to people that I think worked really well. You want to name what's actually going on underneath with them. And I would say, it sounds like you're worried, and I kind of just wrote this down. It sounds like you're worried that the church you helped build is becoming something you don't recognize. Tell me about that. And then just watch how they respond, because now you're not engaging them on, oh no, we do actually do hymns. We do them such and such this time. We know the theology is this. You're saying, tell me about what the church was like. And then see them. Everybody wants to be seen. They want to know that they belong. They want to know that they matter. You talk to them and be real. Again, this is where relationship comes. You have to actually know who they are. You say, man, like you have been here since before I was even here. As a matter of fact, I think you taught me in Sunday school 20 years ago. If you've been there that long, you taught the drummer. Like I know they came in and you changed their diapers back in 1998, those kind of things. And then you, if you can, if it's possible, again, big on this one, make some sort of a small concession. Try to find out, like, what are your favorite hymns? What songs would you have us do? If you can find any kind of common ground. Back in, for most of my time, is I'll work Amazing Grace or How Great Thou Art. I'll work some of that in there. If you can find one of those to work in, it's great. And then that's just like a little bit of what you want to do in the middle of those conversations, especially if you're younger. You got to be careful to not promise the world. I've certainly fallen into that where I'm trying to have everybody that I'm interacting with, I want them to like me. So I'm like, oh, you want this? Great, I'll do that. Oh, what are your favorite songs? Why don't you email me a list of your whole favorite songs? And then I find myself in trouble because they emailed me everything they've ever liked, and then I maybe did one out of there, and they're upset because, oh, you told me to tell me the songs that you liked. Why aren't you doing all the songs or why aren't you doing the majority of the stuff I've offered? So all that to say, don't promise the world when you're having those conversations, but that's kind of how I've navigated that. And again, ultimately, everything we always talk about is relationship. It's helping our church to understand that worship is more than singing, because I genuinely believe that the songs that we pick, whether they're hymns or modern or wherever, whichever direction you want to go, become secondary when you're genuinely helping your church understand that it's really not about those preferences. But again, preferences, there's going to be preferences. You have to enforce some level of preference for you personally to pick your set list. So you've got to figure out how to balance that. It's tricky for sure.
Yeah, I also like to think of it in other forms of music. I was a jazz major, and jazz heads, man, if you don't know those jazz standards that's like in the real book, you're not a jazz musician. And then there's the other guys that are like trying to push the boundaries and try to do, and then people are like, that's not jazz. And it kind of reminds me of that. And then it goes in cycles where all of a sudden it's cool to do the standards. But I think if you do like a survey, either a survey or a focus group, I think a focus group is great, where you have people that you trust from every decade, like somebody in their teens, and then somebody in their 20s, somebody in their 30s, all the way up to your oldest, that can speak candidly with you, but also you trust them. I think that's a great way to gauge, because I definitely think you don't want to be like, you know what, I'm the worship pastor and it's my way or the highway, because I used to think like that. I also would roll up my sleeves every time somebody come at me with the hymn argument, because I'm like, oh boy, I'm about to blow them out the water. I felt like I almost looked for that argument because I was so good at debating that with, do you really know what a hymn is? And do you know what this song is not a hymn? Do you know what year this song came out? And I would just, my goal was to just basically make them look in my head, My goal was make them look stupid so that they can't come at me anymore. How bad of a like mindset is that as a worship pastor? Is like you intentionally want to make somebody look stupid? But that was my goal like 15 years ago. Like I was like, I can't wait for somebody to come at me with this argument because I'm gonna debate them and they're gonna lose and then they're gonna never ask me to do anything again. Like just completely wrong attitude. But if you're a newer staff member, you might be looking for those arguments and be hoping you can prove yourself. Just know that eventually that gets really old and you realize like that's not loving people, right? So if you're looking for an argument or can't wait to debate with somebody, then you might have to check your heart, bro. So that's that to me before anything is the having that the correct mindset before the debate and before the argument is crucial because if you go into it like heated or you go into it already having some kind of feelings or you go into it thinking like I'm going to blow this person away with my debate skills, you have lost the battle already because nobody's going to respond good to that and you're just going to make enemies, and that's the exact opposite of how you want to operate at a church. And I'm not saying that you have to disagree with everybody and take everybody's opinion, but there's an amount of disassociating your emotions and just like genuinely listening to people that I think sometimes that's just like you said, they just want to be heard, like they want to feel like they matter. And you should want people to feel like they matter. You should want them to enjoy worshiping with you. So like just backing up before even the debate itself, what comes before the debate mindset wise is huge. And like I said, I did it. I was so bad. I was so bad at it because I just had pride. Everybody has pride issues when they first start. You start like having low self-esteem because you're worried, you're trying to prove yourself. And then eventually you kind of get a little bit of like seniority and you get a newer title, and then you start getting your ego gets bigger, and then we could do a whole talk on just the development of your ego as a staff member, the arc of it. But yeah, and now looking back, I think it's cool. I think it's cool to sing songs that have been around. The fact that they have been, I wish I could write a song that would be here in 500 years. That would be awesome. A lot of people just want to write a good song because they get on the CCLI charts and they get their check in the mail every month. But imagine just knowing that in 500 years that your song is still being sung. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's good. I'll probably about do it. So yeah, stick around, y'all. We'll be here for you. We'll be back next week.
I'm trying to read Miguel's. Definitely knowing what serves your people best is the way to go. Life is constantly changing. Having music with unchanging truth is a no-brainer, whether modern or Gregorian. Yeah. Definitely make sure your music is theologically correct. Mm-hmm. I would say that's not up for debate.
Yep.
Last thought. Who was it? What was the name of the Marcel band that did the hymns? Not Citizens. What's the other band?
Kaleidoscope, Ghost Ship.
King's Kaleidoscope. Yeah. Man, that was so awesome when my college worship team discovered them and started doing those. Some of those hymns that they redid, the way they did it was brilliant. And it was so accessible.